Darren here, and I just want to go over a few things that are going on in the drone community. Today is the 4th of January 2016. The FAA has recently announced registration for drones in the anything above 0.55 pounds to up to 55 pounds. So I just got a call from somebody who got my number from another associate, and he was asking to get some drone shots in the New York area. I'm in Queens, so New York, Manhattan, Brooklyn, that's all considered New York City, all the boroughs. And he was asking for some shots, and I was consulting on this, and I was basically boiling it down for him that, well, even if I had a pilot's license and an FAA 3033 exemption, the shots he was looking for just wouldn't be legal. He wanted to get shots in Brooklyn streets, and he wanted to get some shots of Manhattan from Long Island City on the waterfront, some shots of the Brooklyn Bridge on the waterfront. Those potentially would be illegal because you can get them from public parks. But I had not gotten as far as to actually investigate the legality of those specific parks, but I was just consulting him in general about shots he wanted to get. He's not going to get them. So I suggested him to go to like Pond 5, look for some stock footage or whatnot. But it's just a growing concern of a particular thing he said to me. Well, he said, he was a very nice fellow, but I was describing to him all these limitations. Like, he said, well, what's the point of a drone? Well, I was like, well, just because it can do something doesn't make it legal. And that's a growing problem nowadays. I'm seeing a lot more people flying, very, not even on the line of the law, flying way over the law. There's people that are flying way over the 400-foot limit. They're flying over crowds. They're flying over roadways. That's the bird. He's with me on this. These guys are the only ones that are legal to be flying with no restrictions. So they're very, very lucky. If you can strap a camera to a bird, I don't recommend it, then it would be legal, I think. Don't quote me on that. Okay, bird. Shh. So it's a growing issue because there's a lot of people that are using the excuse, but it looks pretty. I got a pretty shot. Bird, please. And that's just, it's this epidemic going on of that, it doesn't matter that it's illegal because it's pretty. And it's disturbing, and I'm seeing it a lot more and more these days, and it's going to lead to even more restrictions on drones. So if the FAA catches you just once, you're done. So my advice to this fellow, and I don't think it was the most perfect advice, but he really wanted to get these shots, was first, look for stock footage. There's a lot of stock footage out there. And if he really wants to take a risk, buy his own drone and do it himself. I told him specifically, I'm not condoning you to break the law, but I would much rather you take your own risk versus asking somebody else to. And I told him, there's no way I'm getting those shots for you because, well, I can't operate commercially, and they're not legal, even if I was commercial. So it's a tough thing to come to terms with, that you cannot fly your drone and get these pretty shots in many circumstances. I live in New York City. You're generally just not allowed to fly almost anywhere. There's a couple of there's a lot of parks. Some are restricted, some are not, and you really need to have your due diligence. And just because you want the shot doesn't mean you should get the shot. And I know there's going to be people that are commenting saying, "Oh, it's my drone. Whatever I do with it's my business. If I crash it, then it's my loss and whatnot." Well, no. If you're flying it over people or cars and you crash it, you can injure somebody. And I know there's people that argue, well, it's rare, it's unlikely. It doesn't matter. People deserve to not have unnecessary risk put on them for reasons of hobbyists or just capturing a pretty image. It just doesn't make any sense. You could say that about anything. I know somebody used the example of, toasters account for X amount of deaths a year and drones are this many or non-existent deaths, so maybe you should overregulate toasters. That's different. That's a home appliance. That's something useful. That's something somebody else is using in their home at their own choice. And it's a toaster, it's an appliance, there's a small risk that it could cause a fire. That's their own choice. But putting your choice over somebody's head flying around like a bird is just, it's unnecessary. And I know there's people that are going to be very adamant about, no, it should be my choice, there shouldn't be regulations. I just want people to have more due diligence, more thought to doing something before they do it. So I hope you take this in consideration. I hope you fly safely, and I hope that you read all the instructions for your drone and you look at all the forums and see all the things people are doing and look at all the FAA regulations. But I know that there's a lot of people that are simply not going to do that. If somebody gets a drone as a gift, it's a gift. What are to research it for? Open it up, let's fly it around. Well, it's tough because these things, and here's a little tiny one, they're completely versatile, they're completely free in their motion, but that's the main problem. That's the biggest problem. And to give you an update on what the FAA is doing, they've now required registration for anything over 0.55 pounds up to 55 pounds. Now, The 55-pound thing I have an issue with because that's more than a washing machine. So I would hope that the average person can't afford to buy something that large, because washing machine size things falls on you. That's bad business. But I like that they chose the 0.55 lower limit for registration. Now, to be clear, the registration doesn't mean that if you have a drone under 0.55 pounds, which is about, I think, 250 grams, that doesn't mean you can do whatever you want with it. Of course, you still have to fly reasonably, safely, within rules. But if it's not registered, FAA is basically saying, okay, so anything under this weight is a lot less dangerous to the public. So it's totally, a hobbyist thing versus anything above. Sorry, bird. Here, say hi. Yes, you're the main flyer here. What do you think? Yeah, so they're basically saying, okay, there's these different sized drones. Some are totally hobbyists. Some can be used for hobbyists. Some can be used for professional reasons. But regardless, how much does it weigh? What risk does it pose to the average public? Because they have to assume not everyone's going to be flying, within the rules. And even those who are flying within the rules, maybe they got a special permit or whatnot. Still, they need to assess risk and keep the average person safe. So I like the 0.55 rule. And to give you an idea of what that means, put the bird down. So this is a Hubsan X4. It has a battery installed, and it's got the propeller protectors installed, and it weighs right around, if this thing will put it down so we can calibrate, it weighs right around about 50 grams. I don't know if you can see that, but it's weighing at 50 grams. So under the new regulations, you can get something 5 times the weight. Hey, bird. He's going after the coffee. Bird after coffee. No good. You can get something 5 times the weight of this. So it's not like they're saying, oh, only these tiny little things are exempted from registration, but you can get something that's still a pretty decent little size to play around with. And my main advice to people that are wanting to get into bigger drones, first, absolutely buy a little toy one and get a feel for it. So you don't just buy a big one and then go willy-nilly and break it or break somebody with it. So I like that they chose that size. Just to put it in perspective, the average New York City pigeon can get up to about 4.6 pounds. So certainly it's much less of a risk than the average pigeon falling on your head, but they get a pigeon, it's not an unmanned, or, well, it is unmanned, but it is not unbrained. I know people don't have high opinions of pigeons' brains, but at least there is a brain there operating itself. So it's, it's, when was the last time somebody got hit by a pigeon? And even if they did, it's nice and soft and fluffy, and it's made of, fat and muscle. Look at that. Look at that nice pretty wing. Yeah. Good demonstration, bird. So obviously something that weighs 4.6 pounds, that's metal and plastic and fast spinning propellers, a lot more dangerous than the average pigeon. I don't know why I'm making that analogy or comparison, but just to give you an idea of the actual size. So it's interesting now that I'm sure there's going to be manufacturers that are really going to try and skirt that 250 gram rule and try and make something literally right up to that point, so that they can sell more of those while advertising that doesn't need registration. And that's great. So there's actually a definitive line now, which is nice. So the whole point of this, please fly safe. Don't just say, ooh, I'm gonna get the pretty shot and I'll just break the law for a minute or two, because you don't know what's gonna happen. And you really don't wanna be responsible for that. And I know that there's not a whole lot of incidents going on, but these things are selling like hotcakes. Millions of these things are being sold all the time. It's only going to get worse unless people actually are, being good about it. And I don't know what's going to happen. The FAA might start to say, well, you know what? No, we got to cut it all out. We got to kill everyone. Not kill everyone. We've got to kill off all drone use because it's just too dangerous. So I don't want it to get to that point. No one wants to get to that point. And the only way to make sure it doesn't, or to make sure that we have the best chance of it not getting to that point, is to fly responsibly. And of course, you want to make sure you follow the rules of any particular country you might be in. So if you're in the US, of course, it's the FAA that sets the rules. But if you're traveling, of course, you absolutely need to know what the rules are of the particular country before you start flying. Those familiar with my work have probably seen I have footage flying around a city and over 400 feet in the mountains. That's in the Ukraine, my wife's home country, which we visited in 2015. And it was great. You want to know why? Because it was legal. There are no or at that time, maybe they're going to come up with rules at a later point whenever you're watching this video, but at the time there were no rules against flying drones. So it was great for me as an image taker, but just because it was legal doesn't mean I just went crazy with it and did maneuvers or got really close to buildings or whatnot or flew really close to people. No, I was being as safe as I reasonably could. So all the proper preparations and keeping line of sight and watching out for birds. Birds is another interesting thing. The first time I was actually flying around birds was again in the Ukraine. We were in a mountain region, and I flew up and immediately saw these birds start to circle. And my wife's like, "Oh, I think they're actually catching the bugs. You know, the drones kill bugs. I think the bugs are my Phantom 3's white blades are all bloodied with all the little bugs it's killed. So my wife thinks that the birds are actually feeding off of that. But still, regardless of what the birds are doing, they're a risk to obviously your drone and then the safety of anyone underneath the drone if they were to get in the way of the drone. So I know there's people that think, well, they're being safe about their drone's preparation, they're not going to lose control of it, they think it's totally safe. Well, then you should probably go and look up the video where a hawk took out a drone. So as much as you think you might have everything planned for, you got to plan for the things you can't expect. So that's one of the things I'm always looking out for now is not only is there any other aircraft in the sky, are there any other birdcraft in the sky? Okay, go back to napping. Sorry, bird. So that's just another little tidbit of both risk and also native countries. So if you really want to fly, you know, much more freely, look up which countries don't currently regulate drones. But still, if you do go to a place that actually is very lax on regulation, does allow you to fly in a lot of places, still keep safe. Because once again, the more incidents that happen, the more they will get regulated by both the US and other countries. There is tons of information out there. Go to the forums. I'm always on the DJI forums because I have a DJI product, and I have several other drones like the Zero Explorer and this little Hubsan X4. So when I first got my first drone, the DJI Phantom 3, I was on the forums, I was reading all the instructions, I was looking at all the regulations and learning as much as possible. Learn as much as possible about any drone you buy and be safe. So that's my little rant for now. I hope you find it useful. I hope you are not offended, but if you are, I'm sure you'll comment on it anyway. So that's Darren for now. This is the Bird, fully legal by the FAA standards. Take care. Fly safe.